Hey guys and girls out there in MIDI Guitar Land, it's Dolly coming at you from Sydney, Australia. This is take 3 on the video about the mighty FAMC LF+ series of controllers. This is my LF+JR+ here in full colored LED glory. I love this foot controller. Unfortunately, and for everyone concerned, the company that made these FAMC went out of business some years ago and left a bunch of these devices sort of semi-unsupported. I shouldn't say they're fully unsupported. If you happen to be on Windows or on an Intel series Mac, you can still access the old editing software and the drivers for those platforms, for those operating systems, and you can still run them, without any problems. If you have an M series Mac or if you have a Windows ARM device, you won't be able to run the FTDI driver under those systems, and you won't be able to connect via USB the device, and you won't then be able to run the editor. The editor itself will run on those systems, but you can't connect it. And so this has been an issue for me for some years, because I think in 2022 I updated my computer to an M device, an Apple M1, and from that moment I had nothing but problems with connecting the Liquid Foot. I even purchased some other controllers like a KMI Soft Step and a Morningstar MC8. I like those controllers, but I just really prefer what I've got happening on the Liquid Foot device. It's much more flexible for my kind of style of doing things, and it's just what I learnt on. So it's just like the most familiar kind of like language, if you want, for me. And so I've spent a bunch of time trying to figure this thing out. I solved it quite a while ago, actually by modifying the .inf files that were provided by FTDI for their VCP drivers. I took the FAMC drivers and I looked at the FTDI ones, and I just went through and manually modified them, and I could install them. But after I updated my system from Windows 10 to Windows 11 ARM, I lost access to the drivers, and it said they were tampered with and it wouldn't let me reinstall them. And so it turned out that there was a solution, but it involved signing the drivers and using some development tools. When I first solved this, I wasn't really into development and I didn't really know anything about it. And it's kind of like been a pretty interesting road, because it's actually kind of led me into learning a whole bunch of other things. One of the things I've learned along the way is that I kind of could effectively roll my own driver. So if you check this out, I'm running the LF+ editor natively on macOS 26.5.1, and if I hit the connect button, it's gone into editor mode here, and you can see it's connecting. This was not a trivial feat. This took hours and hours and hours and hours of tweaking the .dext file from FTDI, and I needed to have an Apple developer account, and it's not for everyone, but it is really cool and it works. And like one of the big benefits of having the editor on Mac native is that you can use some of the utilities that aren't available on the Windows side, like the MIDI pass-through utility. So if I start this, and say I open up my monitoring app, we can see that the LF has its own MIDI port. That means that I can send messages through directly to the computer over USB. That's a big deal for me. I don't really like having to use additional MIDI dongles and whatever where I don't have to. I do have a Bluetooth dongle connected to this device and it works, but I've just kind of found that there's a few little gimmies with using it that kind of make it sort of slightly unreliable. These controllers are so great. They integrate really, really well with Axe devices and with Kemper devices, and I don't use those anymore. All my guitar and synth work is done in the box now. The Liquid Foot is just the best controller for it all. So anyway, there it is. It can be done. I might go into this in another video. For me, it was an extremely complex process, and because it's created under an Apple developer account and it's basically a debug tool, it only lives for 6 months and then I have to renew it. It's really only good for personal use at the moment, until such time as I can figure out a way to possibly share this driver publicly. I'm going to recommend that if you're on an ARM chip device, M series Mac or Windows ARM, then you're going to want to jump over to my Vault and MC FAMC-driver-resurrection GitHub repo, and here you can grab a zip file which contains a couple of PowerShell scripts which will assist you in this process, and there's extensive instructions here on how to execute the driver modification, signing and installation. So I've got a clean VM here. The only difference between this and a perfectly clean VM is that I've gone through and installed all the developer tools necessary. Before you actually launch the device, you need to configure it with a boot flag. So I'm going to go in here under Hardware Boot Order Advanced. We need to get to the secure boot flag, and it's this one here. And I'm going to put that into this boot flag here and click OK. And now I'm going to launch the VM. Okay. We're just going to let that load. In the meantime, let's have a look at the notes over here. This includes all the prerequisites that you'll need to complete this process. You're going to want the zip file from the GitHub repo, and once your VM is loaded up, you want to go through and install the Visual Studio 2022 build tools. 2026 is probably not the best idea. Stick with 2022 for now. And as you're installing that, it will give you the option to select desktop development with C++. Grab that and then select these options as in for installation. I did find, just as a note, that I had to reinstall the Windows 11 SDK and WDK. Otherwise it wouldn't work, but your mileage may vary there. So if you do get stuck, maybe try reinstalling these. Okay, so my VM's up and running now. As I was saying, I've gone through and installed all my developer tools. So if we look in the downloads, I've got a few things here ready. These have already been done. The very first thing you're going to want to do is install the LF+ editor. So I've got the 64-bit one here. Obviously I can't provide this because it's copyrighted material, but you should be able to find it if you have a poke around on the interwebs. So I'm going to install this and create a desktop icon. Off it goes, and it's going to give me the option to install the drivers. I'm going to uncheck that, but it's going to install some anyway. And I'm also going to let it launch the LF+ editor. The reason I'm going to let it launch is just so that we can see that right now it will not connect. Another thing to keep in mind is that if your LF+ is powered up and connected via USB, you need to right click over here on the Windows icon, choose Devices, USB, and make sure that it is selected. If it's selected, you can see here at 101, no device found, LF+ plugged into USB. Question 2, are drivers installed? Well, no, they're not yet. But we do have this editor up and running. Okay, so you should have already gone over to the FTDI chip site and grabbed the latest driver. In this video, I'm using this particular version here. I would recommend sticking to that one. If there's a future version, I'll probably need to update the script. But anyway, you can grab that directly, and I've got it over here, so I'm just going to extract it. Okay, so I'm going to rename that ARM64, just to keep things simple. And I'm also going to extract this FAMC driver Resurrection. Okay, so that's good. Don't need to rename that. The next step is to go into the folder where the FAMC editor has been installed. In the drivers section here, we can get rid of all these. They're useless to us on the ARM chips. So I'm just going to zap those. And the next thing I'm going to do is grab the ARM64 folder, drop it in here, replacing all the previous driver data, and I'm going to grab the FAMC Resurrection scripts, and I'm going to put them inside the same folder, ARM64. Okay, so that's all kind of cooked now. I'm in secure boot mode, and so I'm going to launch the PowerShell in admin mode. Okay, and over on the left hand side here in the instructions, we should have some script commands. So I'm going to grab that. That's the first one. So this is the patching file. Now I'll keep this visually clear, hopefully. When I execute this command, it's going to ask me to confirm it. Yes. Watch what happens down here. Okay, it just created some backups. And what it actually did was it modified these INF files to include the device IDs for the FAMC devices in the INF file. We're not done yet. We need to run the second script now. The second script actually signs the patched drivers. This won't work unless you have all the dev tools installed. Okay, so we're going to let it run through. Okay, and it succeeded now. It says install the driver now. Anyway, I'm not going to install it. I'm just going to skip over that. Okay, and it's going to do a little trick where it throws us into test mode. So right now we're not in test mode. If you're in test mode, you can see a little watermark on the Windows desktop. Okay, I just relaunched the new PowerShell and I'm going to reboot. Once we reboot, we want to confirm that we're in test mode. So we can see the watermark down here that indicates we're in test mode. So let's open the PowerShell again. And now we're actually going to install the drivers. Before we do that, I'm just going to confirm that the device is connected. So it is connected. And just to give you even a little bit more of an insight, we'll go to the device manager and look at that. And we can see here the Liquid Foot Plus series is visible. Okay, it's visible, but the driver isn't installed yet. Okay, so now we're going to drop in the install command. And we can see here that the driver package has been added. And now, when we go back to the device manager, we can see we now have ports Common LPT, FAMC LF+ series COM3 is connected. Okay, and also we have an FAMC LF controller in the USB controllers. So, what will happen now if we open the LF+ editor? Success. The controller is connected and it's actually pulling all the data at the moment down to the editor. So I've extensively tested this, works perfectly. As I was saying there, sync complete. The only real differences are that we don't have exactly the same utilities. That's basically everything you need to do. The last thing which you can do is you can turn test signing off. Okay, so I might just open the PowerShell again and we'll go over here to run as administrator. Yep. As soon as this reboots, I'm just going to shut it down again because you can't change a boot policy while the VM's active. So once it's done, I'm going to go over here to configure on my development device. I'm going to go into advanced and I'm just going to take that boot flag out. And now when we reboot, so now when we reboot, the first thing is that we should be out of test mode, so we won't see the flag. The first thing when we reboot now is that we should be out of test mode, so you won't see the watermark on the Windows desktop. Okay, that's good. So our VM is basically running as cleanly as you'd want it to now. And it's, again, I just need to make sure the device is connected. There we go. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Bob's your uncle. Okay, so there it is. And I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what I might be able to do with the macOS driver side of things, but we will see. I hope this has been useful to you. I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.